I just turned it. We're good? Yep. Mayor Manzer, whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. So I will call the Peace River Town Council Governance and Priorities Committee meeting of Monday, March 3rd to order at 5 p.m. And since I am doing this virtually, I would like to turn the chair over to someone who is within the council chambers. So I would take nominations for someone to chair the meeting tonight. Councillor Boyd or Deputy Mayor Boychuk is also not available.
I nominate Oren Ford.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations? Either ask this 3 times or somebody can move to cease nominations. So
I'll move for these nominations.
thank you, Mr. Good. Okay, so we have Mr. Oren Ford is acclaimed. Sorry?
We need all in favor of the motion.
Oh, sorry. All those in favor of Mr. Good's motion?
Aye.
Okay, so just letting everybody know that when Mr. Carr's on the video and I'm on the video, I don't see anybody in the council chamber, so I don't know how that can be changed. So the motion is approved. Councillor Ford, I will ask you to take over as chair as you are acclaimed. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So next on the agenda, item 2, the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions?
Yes, we would like to delete item 1 and item 3 of the closed session items under section 12.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I'll move to accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Scanlehorn. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Next, we have comments from the public. Not seeing any. We'll move to.
Maybe minutes?
We just missed the adoption of the last.
And I even had a printed copy in front of me. So we have the item number 3, adoptions of the minutes from the Governments and Priorities meeting from February 3rd, 2025. Is there any amendments that need to be made there?
I can move that council adopt the minutes of the February 3rd, 2025 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is carried. Okay, next we have presentations, Peace River Area Monitoring Program, Carla Reeser, Executive Director, and Mike Pisaga, Technical Program Manager.
Somebody else driving our presentation, or do we move it to our?
You can move it. I'm just sharing your screen right now
Okay.
so that our arms. But then you can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Hello, everybody. We're happy to be here tonight. It's been a while since we've come to your council, and it's good to be back. I'm Carla. This is Mike. We're going to give a fairly quick walkthrough tonight of just a little bit of an introduction to PRAMP again, or a little refresher of where we're at, what we've been doing. But the real reason we wanted to come tonight in particular is because our board of directors is considering and proposing to move one of our stations, which is the current station in Grimshaw, to Peace River. And we'll talk about a couple locations we're looking at, and we just want to invite any feedback and input from the council that you might have. If we've got time at the end, we'll talk a little bit again about community engagement and some of the outreach efforts that we have in progress. So that's our plan tonight. If I can make this work. Oh, not that way. There we go. So a very short history that I expect most of you are familiar with is that PRAMP started doing, or not, it was pre-PRAMP, I guess, the monitoring in the area started in 2010. And it was looking specifically at the impacts of heavy oil and the emissions come from that. And then later in 2016, PRAMP formed as a not-for-profit society. And in 2018, our next big milestone really was acquiring an air monitoring station that could provide the data for the Air Quality Health Index. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through. But today then, in incorporating that AQHI station and other small sensor monitoring, we continue to adapt and evolve to the changing needs and to take advantage of technology that we have, as that keeps changing too. So PRAMP is one of 10 airsheds in the province, and you can see on our map, the blue and green boxes are the other 9 airsheds. And we work closely with the other airsheds. Mike is part of the technical committee for the Airsheds Council in the province. I'm one of the co-chairs on the board for the Airsheds Council. And so we do a lot with the other airsheds in terms of exchanging information around the outreach that we do and around technical practices so that we can provide consistent, to the extent possible, consistent monitoring and reporting across the province. And you can see there's 88 what we call continuous monitoring stations in Alberta, and 5 of those are in the PRAMP boundaries. I think it's intuitive. We understand air quality is important, but I want to just kind of reiterate that a little bit. We've learned more in the last few years about the significant impact that air quality can have on our health. And in particular, for people that are what we call our vulnerable populations, so children, seniors, or people with respiratory conditions. We know that as of 2021, and this data is a little older, and it's probably not, it's probably underestimating the impact of air quality, but in 2021, it's estimated that 15,000 people in Canada died prematurely because of air quality, 1,400 of those in Alberta. So we would take our air quality for granted a good part of the time, but it has significant impacts for many people. And one, unfortunate story closer to home is there was a 9-year-old boy named Carter in 100 Mile House in BC, and he had asthma. His parents were very aware of his condition and the limitations that he needed to follow when the conditions were poor and when there was air quality, when there was wildfire smoke in the area. So in the summer of July of 2023, his parents, they did the right thing. They checked the air quality, and it said that the air quality was good. It was a good day for Carter to be outside. And so they spent the day outside. And at the end of the day, Carter had an asthma attack. And they did the usual things. They gave him his puffer. They put him in the bath to bring it under control. Eventually took him to the hospital, and he died. And it was later confirmed that it was the poor air quality was part of the contributing factor to his death. And what we also know is that when they checked the air quality, the nearest monitor to them, or the nearest sensor, was about 100 kilometers away. And so that reading 100 kilometers away, it said the air quality was good, but closer to home, the air quality, even though it looked okay, it was not okay. And that cost Carter's life. So one of the things that we're talking about today is moving some air quality monitoring closer to the town of Peace River. And we'll share a little bit more too about some of the other sensor monitoring that we're doing to bring more monitoring to more places in the region. Can you speak from there?
Yeah. So one of the things that Carla mentioned was the Air Quality Health Index, or the AQHI. And the Air Quality Health Index takes all of this complicated air quality monitoring data and turns it into a simple value from 1 to 10 that's easy for the public to understand. And there's a color-coded scale. And it's a lot easier for someone to understand a high-risk value of 10 versus 65 parts per billion of ozone, right? So this is one of the things that we can do with our air quality monitoring data from the Portable Air Monitoring Station. It's something that other airsheds do with their monitoring and within their monitoring networks as well. And this is one of the visualizations of the Air Quality Health Index. The color-coded icons on the map represent the different monitoring stations across the province. And the table on the right-hand side of the slide represents the Air Quality Health Index for current conditions, and then also a forecast for the next day. I know the print is rather fine, or it's probably difficult to read, but what you'll see there is that Peace River isn't on that map. And then this backing up to our air quality monitoring network, as Carla mentioned, historically, our focus has been on heavy oil and understanding the air quality impact of odors around heavy oil, particularly in the Three Creeks area. So on this map, the three green canola flowers kind of in the center of the map represent some of our core monitoring stations, as well as the one down in the Reno area. And those ones are mainly focused on monitoring in heavy oil producing areas and our ongoing monitoring surveillance in those areas. But we also have a monitoring station in Grimshaw, which is our Air Quality Health Index monitoring station, which is the one that we're proposing to move to Peace River. So we have a process for relocating our portable monitoring station. Prior to Grimshaw, it was in the community of Godot Lake, and every 2 years we undertake a process of taking in feedback from the public, from our board, on where we might want to relocate this monitoring station, whether it's based off of current air quality concerns or a gap in our monitoring network. So right now, the board is proposing to move the Air Quality Health Index station to the town of Peace River. And we did an initial, after the board kind of made this decision to look at Peace River to relocate the station, we looked at a number of sites in town that met kind of our siting criteria, which includes year-round access, access to power, and some siting criteria around distance to buildings, distance from buildings, distance from trees, and distance from busy roadways, and things like that. So we evaluated, or at least looked at five sites. We narrowed it down to two, and we believe they're both on property that's owned by the town of Peace River, but we're not necessarily, those aren't the only sites we could be considering. There could be other options as well. This was just a kind of an initial screening of potential monitoring locations. So we've got these two sites that we've narrowed it down to that have at least from what we can tell, easy access to power, and are good in terms of a technical standpoint from monitoring air quality.
Oh, that's the slide. There we are. Yeah.
I think there's one more.
Oh, is there one more?
Yeah. It's QHI slide.
Yeah, it was. It was this
Oh,
one.
this one. Oh, okay, we skipped that one.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we're backing up to this slide. This is an example of the kind of data that we produced with the Air Quality Health Index monitoring station in Grimshaw. This is data from 2023. So on this chart, right on the left side of the screen, each dot represents a 1 hour air quality health index value. So across this whole chart, there's actually over 8,000 dots that represent the hours that we reported or determined the air quality health index. And as you can see, from about late April to early October, we had several high-risk air quality health index days because of that protracted or that prolonged wildfire season that we had that year, where we had smoke in the area right into October. And the donuts on the bottom of that chart just a different way of visualizing that data, showing that there's a very high percentage of time over the summer months that we had moderate to high to very high health risk air quality days in Grimshaw.
So we'll just pause here to say, are there any questions or comments about the option of moving the station from Grimshaw to Peace River. The data slide that Mike just described it's an example of the kind of data that we would be able to provide for the town of Peace River if the station is located in the town of Peace River. There's a good chance it's very similar to what's in Grimshaw, but not necessarily. So that's what we know about air quality can be quite variable from one location to another, even in close proximity.
Where were the two locations? Could you just explain whereabouts they are in town?
So one of them is, so the site number one is at the very end of the walking trail on the east side of the east side of the river. And the other location is in between, I think it's called,
Down past the old hospital on River Road there.
yeah, just north of Shaftesbury's, estates there.
Comments or questions?
What was the question?
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Mayor, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so these, it's kind of a portable thing on wheels that we would see as in one of the pictures?
Yeah, that's a picture of the station. It's actually the station in Grimshaw. And if you're in Grimshaw, it's right in front of the town office on their front lawn.
Okay, and so the Mercer has a air monitoring system of some sort up by the cemetery. Is this measuring the same things or different, or how does that work?
So it could be monitoring different things. This is an enhanced suite of parameters that's capable of producing the air quality health index. That station that Mercer operates doesn't have all of the parameters necessary for determining the air quality health index, and the parameters in that station are kind of closely tied to what it needs to be monitoring related to its operating approval or operating permit.
And if I could ask one more question, maybe of admin, do we have a choice in this or not?
Yes, you do. It's on the sites that we're looking at are on town land. So we would need the support of we want a willing host to host the station. So we have other stations that are located on private land, and we have agreements with those landowners. So we have no authority, nor would we want to impose a station on anybody or any town. So yes, by all means, if it's something that you didn't want to have, then we would absolutely, respect that.
Director Fisher?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ford, unmuted. Can you get your mic? There we go. Okay, that's a little bit better. Not so technologically challenged at the moment. No, so the Peace River Air Monitoring Group actually reached out to myself just before Christmas, I think, or late last year, before they came forward tonight. And I think what would be useful is if there's sort of general support for an air monitoring location, and then they could work with myself and Ms. Modi to find a location would be ideal. I think that there would be value for the community to have one in town. I just remember when I first started here, we did an event, and the air quality up on the top of the hill was very, very different. It was when we had all the fire smoke in the area. The air quality up on top of the hill was feeling very different than what was in town. So we left in town here and it was A-okay, and we got up to the top and all of our eyes were burning by the end of the day. So yeah, that's sort of what I think. I think that it would be useful for general support if you guys are in support, and then admin could work through some of the site details through our planning development process.
Councilor Good?
Maybe it's an irrelevant question after the last comment, but well, you've narrowed it down to two that you would kind of see as good candidates. Everybody has a preference. What would be your preference?
I think our preference is for the number 4 site right now. This is a very good, technically, a very good monitoring location. It's open. It wouldn't be impeded by any trees. One thing in terms of the commissioning and the deployment of the new location is that we pay for the commissioning. Any kind of upgrades that might be required to connect it to power, those costs are borne by PrEP. We're always welcome to in-kind contributions. But we don't expect our hosts to cover any of the commissioning or ongoing costs of at the new site.
Including fencing, security,
Fencing,
that kind of
yeah,
stuff,
electricity, yeah.
Yes, this is where I'll kind of jump in and share my good news story. I know a lot of it you touched on, some of it you haven't yet. But, and some of it has to do with the website with, I think you call it Purple Airman. Okay, so anyway, I've been a ref for Peace Region Minor Football for 26 years. And you mentioned the story about that young fella from 100 Mile House. So when we had all of the fires going on and just like Director Fisher had said, the smoke down here was way different than the smoke up on the hill, and that's only like a couple of miles away. With your area index chart where you had the levels from 1 to whatever, in Alberta amateur football rules, kids cannot be outside playing their sport if that index is 7 or higher. If it's 6, they can play. The unfortunate part is back then, Alberta Amateur Football was using the Alberta government website for their updates. Their updates would come from the station that was up by the airport, which would only update once an hour. So we had a team from out of town come in from Grand, I think it was Grand Prairie. And this was after your last presentation with the PRAMP website. So we got onto the PRAMP website under that purple air map. And it's giving us, because of the monitors that are around, it's giving us readings up on the hill plus readings down on the north end of town. Fortunately, with a phone call to Alberta Amateur Football, they went to your website and right over the phone and at the beginning of the game, they said, yes, use that live update. It's a good site. So fortunately, the kids got to play that day. Another day, it was at 7, so we couldn't play. So we decided to wait it out. While within 15 minutes, that index had climbed. So the kids, we had to shut the game down, but the website works, and Alberta Amateur Football is now using the PRAMP website for their air quality for the kids' games.
Great, yeah. Do you have the device?
I do have one of them back there. Yeah, so
Can I ask how much it costs to run, something like that costs to run per day?
per day.
And you guys pay your own costs, you said?
Yes, we pay, we actually are, the operations of PRAMP are mostly funded from the oil sands monitoring program, which is funded by the heavy oil emitters, heavy oil producers who create emissions. And so we have a portion of the funds from the oil sands monitoring program, and that covers most of our operating costs. We also have a grant from Alberta Environment that supports our education and outreach work.
Mr. Sisson, just so that you're aware, I gotta kind of play by the rules a bit. So if you have any questions as far as the presentation goes, if you can give those questions to administration after meetings done, would be appreciated, and they'll get your answers.
Well, they asked if anybody, I mean,
They were asking.
Yeah, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. I have to follow procedure. Go ahead.
yes, Robert.
So there's, I guess, make a distinction between the two types of monitoring. So the trailer that we're talking about moving is kind of the gold standard for monitoring. It's calibrated every month. It's routinely checked. There's a whole quality assurance and quality system kind of system behind it. The purple air sensors, which we also deployed several, we've deployed several in the valley, above the valley, recognizing that there are differences between air quality, because of the effects that the valley has on air movement. These are low cost sensors, like the trailer and everything in it costs about $250,000 to purchase. And then these devices are about $250. They're not the same in terms of like precision, but it gives you a fairly good indication, allows you to kind of cast a wider net of air quality monitoring. I kind of liken it to, you can go to the drugstore and have your blood pressure checked, but if you want a really accurate reading, you might go to your doctor, right? And so this is a good screening tool, like the drugstore blood pressure machine might be a good screening tool, and the air quality monitoring trailer or the doctor visit is your gold standard.
I think we're past our 15 minutes, but can I just speak to couple of slides toward the end here about our education and outreach and about this purple air sensor? And is that okay if I move on?
Continue on.
Yeah, okay. So we do have an outreach program that Councillor Shannon is very familiar with. You'll see us at the Peace River Trade Show, we'll be at the Grimshaw Trade Show, we'll be at the Teachers Convention and other community events, including Treaty Days for our Indigenous communities in the area and our partners. We've recently launched a new program that's an opportunity to sponsor air quality lanterns. So these lanterns change color. There's a special bulb in them that change color according to the air quality. This lantern was recently added to the Peace River Library. It's sponsored by Islander Oil and Gas, one of our grant members. And it reads data from a sensor that's placed, or from one of the sensors in town, this purple air sensor. So we're excited about this new program for organizations to sponsor a lantern. And we currently have 4 lanterns sponsored, one by Islander, Infinite, and Obsidian Energy sponsored too. So that's one of our new initiatives. And just a couple other pictures here, one in the Grimshaw Library, one at the Peace River Health Center. And last, I'll just say these are our current members of PRAM, and we're always welcoming new members if the town were interested. It would be an opportunity to join the board of directors if desired, but that's optional. But we would be happy to recognize the town as a supporter of healthy air quality if the town wanted to join at some point. So that's it for us today.
Thank you very much for your presentation. For council that's on the screen, is it just the mayor and Councillor Card? I can't see the top screen. Oh, okay. Mayor Manzer or Councillor Card, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. And moving on the agenda. Next is review of bylaws and policies and the land use refresh bylaw with Ms. Moody.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm here today again with the land use bylaw, primarily to give council an opportunity to ask any questions or provide any initial feedback on the draft. Before we get to that, I do want to highlight for council just where we are in terms of some of the community engagement that we've been doing. We do have our project website that is live now with the bylaw. It also includes the link to the presentation that I gave council on February 3rd for anybody who wants to watch that, as well as a direct link to the map that shows the proposed land use districts for the new bylaw. We have been doing regular social media posts. We opened a survey and that is remains open until March 7th. As of February 27th, we had somewhere between 49 and 60 survey responses, depending on which question you were looking at. But we had a fairly good engagement with what is a fairly long survey with lots of details in it. We did hold an open house here in council chambers on February 19th. We have had so far one meeting with the MPC to review the draft bylaw, and we will continue to review the document with the MPC over the next few meetings. There was an information table at the farmer's market on February 22nd, where I was able to talk to a number of community members and highlight the project for them. We plan on having information tables at the Parade of Programs on April 3rd, and as well as the Northern Expo Trade Fair on April 25th to 26th. And we have also sent information emails to neighboring municipalities, local contractors, realtors, developers, and key landowners. In terms of next steps, just a reminder, we're in the community engagement portion of our process right now with our draft bylaw. We expect to make changes to the draft in March and continue engagement. We hope to present the first reading of the draft to council in April. And then we'll do the legislative advertising that's required and hold our public hearing, hopefully in May. And then if there are any last changes that need to happen, there's still that opportunity. And then we're hoping for bylaw to come back to council for second and third reading in June. So I would turn the floor over to council and ask if there are any initial questions or feedback that you have that you'd like us to work on or address.
I just have one question myself. So you had mentioned that there was letters and emails that have gone out to a lot of our local developers.
That's right, yes.
Okay, about approximately how many do you know?
Ooh, I'd have to go back to that email and do a count. A good number, but over on that email chain, there was definitely over 20.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilor Good?
One of the things that is the effect that this bylaw is going to have. It generally, it affects everybody in the whole town, but as far as people who have sort of dollars involved in it, it would be your contractors, realtors, developers, landowners, etc. I know you had the open house, the public survey and stuff like that. Are there other opportunities going to be made available? Like I see you have continued community engagement in April. Are there going to be some varied time kind of things, because some people work in the evening, some people work in the daytime, whatever? Will there be more than one opportunity for these developers or whoever, the realtors, to come and have conversations? Or could that be arranged that way?
I would say that could be arranged. At this time, we don't have it in the calendar, but certainly we can make that possible. We haven't had any requests at this time based on who we have sent that information out to, so. But certainly we can look at.
Yeah, sometimes I think an invitation instead of a request, because if you send out the invitation to, if you send, here's 3 opportunities, 2 opportunities, whatever to come, and nobody shows up, well, that be very blunt, that's on them. And I just want to make sure that before this goes to the public or goes to our public hearings, that everybody has a chance to sort of weigh in on it. So it's just a thought.
Thank you.
Councilor Shannon?
I agree with Dawn, just for the record. I have a couple of questions. One is on, where am I here? The minimum of 50% of ground floor commercial, it's 5.2.4. A minimum of 50% of ground commercial, that one, or it has, shall have clear glazing. Glazing is not permitted to be tinted. So does that mean that anybody that has murals, or I know, like for example, like the dollar store, or who else has a mural that I think that Donaire place? So is that what you're saying in that one? I just wanted some clarification on that.
So that's a regulation that's within the Main Street overlay. And it definitely regulates future development. The intention there is that the windows that are installed on a building are not tinted so that we can't see through them. So the idea is that we are trying to create a streetscape where there is the opportunity to see in and out of buildings. So we have eyes on the street and people know that we can see. It's a SEPTED concept, and also just promotes a friendlier downtown. I think the spirit of the regulation is that we would have windows that we can see through. So when you have businesses that have covered their windows in some sort of signage that makes it so you can't see through. That's not necessarily consistent with that regulation, but the regulation is specific to the windows themselves that are installed, not necessarily that type of signage.
Okay, so decaling windows. It's okay then, like for people to put the decals, or in the future, it is suggested in here, is that just a recommendation from administration, or is that somewhere in a code or something like that? I don't, this is not my wheelhouse.
Yeah, so the regulation is dealing with the windows specifically, so it's not necessarily specific to whether decaling is allowed or not allowed. That's not being addressed in that regulation that you're referring to. I'd have to look at the signage section to be certain, but I'm pretty sure the bylaw right now isn't dealing specifically with decaling of windows. Yeah.
Just to reiterate on that comment too, is when we did our SEPTED walk around, the one thing that with businesses on Main Street or wherever your business is, and not picking on liquor stores, let's say, with all the posters, but you want a clear sight line from the street to inside the store and sight line from inside the store to outside for crime prevention. Okay. Councillor Vitt.
This begs the question, there are stores that have frosted windows. Predominantly, like, I also noticed that the cannabis stores, for example, Charles, totally blocked up, but aren't they supposed to be blocked up? So there's kind of I don't know, schizophrenia in application. We want to make sure we can see inside, except for places with really tasty targets. I don't know.
Yeah, I will speak to that. That is a provincial requirement through the AGLC to have that not being able to see into cannabis retail. I believe last time I spoke to someone from AGLC about that, I think they were actually considering updating that requirement because it has created opportunities for crime. So there's an unintended consequence. They want to limit exposure to minors, but there is also a consequence that it has made them prime targets for crime. So, you know, there are multiple reasons why we want to have that visibility to our Main Street from our businesses and vice versa.
Councillor Shannon.
I have one more question. It's about the landscaping securities of the 7.9.24 and 7.16. That seems unreasonable to me to expect 100% cost of the landscaping. But if your landscaping is $100,000, then you have to give the town $100,000 until your project is done. And what if it takes 2 years and that $100,000 is sitting somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like some clarification on that because that doesn't seem very development friendly to me.
Securities, there's definitely always a conversation with developers, and it is something that we don't do lightly. 100%, or in some cases, you actually look at some municipalities, they go so far as that require 125% security. Because if they don't, at the end of that time frame, then in order to make sure that the landscaping is installed properly and also is living at the end of that security time frame, they need that amount of money to make sure that they meet the security at the end of the day, or sorry, the landscaping at the end of the day actually meets the standard that the development was approved for. So it is a big ask, undoubtedly, but it is hard. Otherwise, you can have an agreement, but the thing that actually provides the security to the municipality is the money. And without that, then we are in a costly situation to enforce that requirement.
So who decides, is it up for debate, like how much, like is it 50%, is it 100%, like is that kind of across, like everywhere does 100%, or do some places do 50%, or like is there room for negotiation there, or how does that play? I
would say that I'm not saying every municipality in Alberta does 100% because I can't know that for certain. I do know that the majority of the municipalities that are taking security for landscaping would be looking at 100% at a minimum, 125% in some cases. And that is, I think, based largely on legal recommendations and experiences of municipalities trying to go and enforce those requirements in situations where they haven't had that security. They've learned the lesson, and that's what has set that standard. And I'm also wondering if Director Fisher
Yeah, I've been
wants to
trying
weigh
to-
in.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in. So when we say securities, we don't just mean cash in hand all the time. We also do work with developers, letter of credit, bonds, performance bonds, labor bonds. And landscaping in our bylaw is kind of defined as both the like softer stuff, plants, shrubs, green space, but also the hard landscaping. So the paving, the tie-ins, the sidewalk, stuff like that. And that's often the stuff that we end up fighting. We're trying to get them to bring to like a reasonable standard. And so there are other options other than just like cash in an account sitting there not being used or being useful. We can work with them for bond. That usually means that they're out an amount, but the bonding, like it's like an insurance policy or a letter of credit, which does affect their borrowing for the organization, but it isn't cash in hand. But it is something that we can draw against if we need to get it in.
Thank you.
We'll go to Mayor Mazur. She had her hand up a while ago, and then we'll go to Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. I have a question about the statements about fences. There's one on page 11 that basically is under the category of narrative of activities and uses that do not require development permit. So it talks about fences in industrial districts less than or equal to 1.9 meters. And then I go over to page 122, and it's talking about in section 8.1.17, a development permit application is required for fences, gates, and walls in industrial district, fences, gates, walls that are greater than or equal to 1.9 meters. They both have equal to 1.9 meters. So I think one of the equals to 1.9 meters should go out. It's either required or not. So if it's, you follow what I'm saying though?
100%. Thank you, Mayor Mazur. I agree with you. We will remove one of the equals.
Okay. And another question for you. Throughout this, when it's recommending distances and landscaping and so on, is the ideas put forth Fire Smart sort of in the background of some of those, or is that just another thing totally?
Sorry, can you just say again which distances you're?
So I haven't got a specific example, but if I know some places trees were to be planted and so on, certain heights and whatever. So the Fire Smart program sometimes recommends that foliage and so on be of certain types and kept away from buildings and that sort of thing. Just wondering if that was one of the background principles of some of the greenery aspects of this land use bylaw.
I don't think that the bylaw itself is being very prescriptive in terms of the type of landscaping and exactly where it's placed on the properties, aside from within the front yard. So I don't want to overstate the degree to which Fire Smart is incorporated into those.
Yeah, thank you. So, yep. So different question.
Okay. Sorry.
Different question. Has to do with 5.5.2. It talks about a subdivision, Shaftesbury Estates and so on. It refers to the Thurber Consultants 1986 geotechnical assessment. And I'm wondering, is that still valid, or is that something that town will have to look at in the future to upgrade or whatever?
We are asking our lawyers to weigh in on how we should refer to that within the bylaw right now. The document, the report exists and it is ours. So we can certainly refer to it, but we can't rely on it. It is old enough that we wouldn't be able to rely on it. So for new decisions, we would be looking to a new report.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question that I'm searching for, so I'll come back. Thanks.
Councillor Carr and then Director Fisher.
My question, I haven't finished reading the entire document, but there are a number of things that I have questions about and concerns with. Would you prefer I just put them in an email to everyone and have it addressed that way rather than stretch a meeting out longer than maybe to be prepared coming in?
Absolutely. If you want to give us the feedback in writing, we can review it and come back with some fulsome responses. There's also an opportunity where the MPC is going through the document in a more detailed way. So that would be also an opportunity to have some discussions related to the specifics.
Okay, I didn't attend the last MPC meeting and I didn't feel it'd be the place for me to bring those concerns up, but maybe I should have. So thank you.
Director Fisher.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in on the Trevor line discussion there. Loop it back to Mayor Manzer's question. My understanding is that there are also a number of properties where there's been a restricted covenant that refers to the Trevor report actually on title. So it's a piece that's in our bylaw, but there are also a number of properties where it's been put onto the title where they have to maintain setbacks or do things that are in alignment with that reporting.
Councillor Shannon.
I have two more quick ones and then the rest I could email in. The one is about the bed and breakfast, about not eating in your, no food preparation shall be conducted within any bedroom made available for rent. How are you going to enforce that law or that bylaw? Like, is that enforceable?
Well, I mean, it would be enforceable if we became aware that food preparation was occurring. Certainly, if we received drawings that showed any food preparation stations within a bed and breakfast, that would flag for us that that wouldn't be allowed. But other than that, it would be up to becoming aware of an infraction for us to be able to enforce it.
Okay, my second question. I just picture like, do we go look in windows? I don't know I just don't know how that would go. But my next one is to do with the 20 days after receipt of a development permit application. To determine whether the application is complete or incomplete. 20 days seems like a long time to me. Is that a long, I don't know, is there a way to make that tighter timelines, or is that like a maximum, or how would you come up with that one?
That timeline comes from the Municipal Government Act, and that would be our maximum. So that's certainly not the time, that's not our target timeline, but the maximum.
Director Fisher.
Yeah, I just also want to weigh in. Lots of times if we're pushing up against that timeline, it's because we haven't gotten information that we've asked for from the developer or the applicant. So we've asked for some supplementary information like, hey, you didn't provide us a sketch showing the setbacks from the property line or anything like that. And if they don't provide that, that's when we usually are pushing up against those timelines. If they're providing us the things that we need to say yes, it's pretty quick. So.
And is that 20-day timeline, is that for the project to be like completed, to have all the stuff in, or like what is the timeline for exactly, or is that just to have it submitted for review, and then if there's things, or does it have to be like totally completed by that 20-day mark?
So the way the development permit process works is we receive an application that starts that clock for the 20 days. We have 20 days to review the application and let someone know if they need more information or not. Often we don't take the 20 days, but sometimes if they do require more information, then we will give them a timeline. Please give us this information by this date. Often we're talking to them, so we kind of have a sense of how much time they might need to do that. So we'll give that timeline. If they provide that information before that timeline is over, great, and then we can proceed with processing the application. If they don't give us that information, then and the timeline runs out, we can either provide a time extension, or if we feel like they're not responding, they're not responsive, and it's not really going anywhere, then we would close the file and it would be a deemed refused application just based on the fact that we didn't have the information to make the decision. Once we do get that information, then officially we're on a new clock which is the 40 days to make a decision. But typically that is, for us, in our practice, has been the faster part of the process. Once we have a complete application, we often have a pretty good sense of where we're going and are able to issue that decision fairly quickly. Thank you.
Mayor Mazur, did you find your last question yet?
Yes, I did. It's on page 34. I think there's just a little typo on 622. In the pink part of the chart, it says, I think. So glad everybody's thinking, I
NBC
guess.
has already
But,
flagged that for me as well,
yeah.
so thank you very much.
Yeah, no, and just a comment on the whole, I know we're all still reviewing this document, but I think it's a major upgrade. So thank you for your work on this with your fellow people who helped, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Scammell, any questions?
Being on the MPC, I've had an opportunity to ask some of mine, so it's all happening and we're gonna do it again tomorrow.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then I'd be looking for a motion, and I think Mayor Mazur, it'd be an opportunity for you to make a motion.
Oh, lovely. Okay. So I am going to move that council accept the interim land use bylaw refresh update for information, noting suggested feedback as discussed during this meeting.
Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for that. Moving on, unfinished business, we have none. Next is new business, joint use planning agreement. Ms. Bell and Ms. Moody.
You tried to run away.
Just read the name on the paper.
Yeah. Saw her trying to run away.
Thank you very much. The report before council this evening is a proposal for an updated brand new joint use and planning agreement. The town has had a joint use agreement for a number of years. Early 2000s was the most recent joint use agreement put in place. There was an amendment in 2000 and I believe 2005, where sports fields were added for joint use development and community use. That was formalized in an agreement at that time. Essentially, what the province is asking is each municipality and each school division to come to a joint use agreement, final agreement, repeating myself. And our current agreements do not include the planning component. A lot of other municipalities would have had a planning component, ours did not. So what has happened through the involvement of all the school divisions and Mayor Manzer as the council representative through the joint use committee is the development of a new proposed all-encompassing document that merges the existing agreements and the requirement for a planning component. The new document outlines clearly in a lot more detail, guidelines for use, guidelines for access by the school divisions and the municipality, community organizations. Plus, there's a significant component around the planning aspect, how school sites will be allocated, what to do if school sites were to be disposed of, servicing requirements for school sites. So a lot more detail on the planning component of things. It's been approximately a year. Mayor Manzer, if you have anything else to add from your committee perspective, please feel free to jump in.
No, it was great that all three school divisions, though, were willing to sit at the same table and come up with one major agreement.
Another big component in the agreement is a dispute resolution clause. That is a very key and important piece of any agreement, especially when you have multiple parties to an agreement. Other than that, Ms. Modi, do you have anything else to add?
I'm here for questions if there are questions related to the planning section.
One question, how would, like with this joint use agreement, when it goes forward, how would the fees bylaw tie into this when you're talking about sports fields and baseball fields?
So what administration did is we removed, the actual previous old agreement actually had a copy of the 2001 or whatever year it was, fees and charges bylaw, which is not very manageable to have a multi-year agreement, try to foresee what your fees are going to be. The reference in the agreement is literally up to each party, because each party charges fees for the use of their facilities, and it's up to their annual process of how they set their fees, and the fees of the day will be the fees that are charged. There is a request within the agreement to consider not a reduction of fees, but a scaling of fees for youth and school use, that we consider a lower fee in relationship to town facilities when a school is booking them. So for example, if our youth rate for Fieldhouse is $20 an hour, when schools are accessing that same location, the schools are requesting a slightly reduced rate. So maybe it's $18 an hour, or $15 an hour. Actually, off the top of my head, I don't know what our school fee is for courts use right now, but I know it is slightly lower than our standard youth rate for any other community group. So that's some of the wording, generally speaking, within the agreement.
So how would the reverse of that work then, if it's, because we're looking after booking for like football or soccer, how does that work when it's their property?
So the school has full rights to charge whatever fee we see fit for those school spaces, because at those locations, we are also maintaining the sites and paying the cost of maintenance. And the school is sort of obtaining the benefits of that maintenance that the town is doing for the community organizations.
Any other questions from council?
Yes.
Councillor Carr?
In that agreement, you mentioned something about the demolition of buildings. Who generally pays for that? Is that the school division? Like, for example, the school that was just built at the north end, who is assessed the cost of the demolition of the old school?
The school division that owns or is, I guess in the future, leasing that school structure. The town hasn't been involved in the EQB as the most recent example, involved in the cost of that demolition. As far as I'm aware, yeah, I'm quite positive it was the school that was responsible for that.
And that would apply to all school divisions? They would be responsible for their own?
Correct. So their cost of their building, of their structures, demolition of their structures is the responsibility of the school divisions. The cost of servicing the site seems to be borne by potentially a developer, depends on the situation, and or potentially municipality, again, depending on the situation around a site and the development of that site. So there are some potential costs to the municipality around servicing any new school locations.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, does anybody like to make a motion?
Will move that council direct him to bring the joint use planning agreement to a future council meeting for formal consideration.
Everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is carried.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item. Item number 2, WCB premium reduction with CAO Miller.
Thank you. Just wanted to bring a briefing note forward. Start off with, staff is continuously and on an ongoing basis striving to implement efficiencies and find cost savings. What we don't do is we fail to celebrate and recognize and bring forward some of those wins. And this is a big one I thought was important to bring forward. So as you're aware, we participate in WCB, And our premiums start with a base rate, and that base rate is calculated based on all of the costs of the municipal government's claims during a period of time. And that base rate then is calculated against every $100 of our salary costs. Once that industry rate is calculated, then the town's individual rate is calculated from the base rate. And what happens is we either get charged a surcharge on the base rate, or we get a discount on the base rate. And it is dependent on our town, our experience with WCB. So if our claim costs on a 3-year average is less than the municipal industry average, we get a discount on our rate. So we have the base rate, and if our claim costs are less over a 3-year period than all the other municipalities, we get a discount. If our claims costs during that 3-year period are greater than our municipal partners, then we pay a premium to our WCB costs. So things that also impact our rates is we, as a town, we participate in the Certificate of Recognition, or CORE program. And what the CORE program does is it also provides a discount to the rate charge based on one of 3 things. Maintaining our CORE certification, and then to do that, in part, we have to participate in a whole safety program, and we have audits of our safety program on an annual basis. Every 3 years, the audit is conducted by an external party that comes in, and the other 2 years, we have our internal auditing team that audits our WCB program, and then they go out and participate and do external audits for another municipality. We have an improving your performance component, so year over year, if we improve our claims costs, and then maintaining industry leadership. So those components also will help to reduce our WCB. Obviously, limiting claims or making sure a claim doesn't happen, and then if a claim was to happen, managing that claim to reduce the costs and ensuring the employee gets back to work as quickly as possible will also impact our premiums that we pay. So since I would say I'm not sure, I think it's going on 2 years, our health and safety officer joined the town, and he has done some amazing work along with our team, improving our safety program. And our health and safety person at the moment, he does bring industry experience and also experience from the regulator. So he's familiar with the regulator and how they look at things, and has brought some really great programs in place. One of the things that they have done has brought in software called SALAS safety software, and it enables everybody to access all their data, claim forms, incidents, near misses, reports, anything health and safety reported or related goes on that software, and everybody in the town has access to that software. So all of these things combined, working on our near misses, increasing our safety reporting, doing root cause analysis, routine and regular safety meetings, advisories, notifications, joining a return to work program in 2024. And then we've also recently joined a program called Occupational Injury Service, which enables, should we have an injured employee, we are able to fast track them and prioritize them for medical treatment. Again, with the goal of getting our employees back to work as quick as possible. So we did have some high claim costs recently, and in particular, we did have a claim in 2023 that was submitted to WCB that resulted in 28,000 and change charged against our WCB experience, and would have been included in our 2025 premium calculation. So what happens is they always take 3 years of history, but not the immediate prior year. So it would have been 21, 22, and 23 claims will form our 2025 costs. We did engage an organization that works on a contingency basis to review our claims on an annual basis. And then if we do suspect anything or we do like to appeal a claim in particular, they will work on a for-fee basis. In this case, we had questions regarding this $28,000 claim and concerns about it, about the validity and largely the impact it would have on our premiums. So we did engage the consultant to put forward an appeal. We were successful in that claim. And as a result of the success of that claim, we are going to be saving about $58,000 in premiums for this year, 2025. Similarly, in 2026, I did think we were expecting a refund for 2024 premiums because I was under the understanding these claim costs formulated part of those 2024 premiums. But since this was drafted, this memo, I have been informed that it did not calculate into a 2024 premium, so we won't have a refund check coming. But we are still well over 100,000 in the good. And I want to say that this is really a successful win because of the program we put forward, the diligence and understanding that this claim was questionable, and really important to note that WCB almost never fully overturns a claim, but our HR department had such fantastic records that it was fully defendable, and we were successful on our appeals. So I just want to put out a great job. Kudos to the team and for ensuring every day they come to work, they keep safety on their mind, go home to their families, and we're doing really everything we can to reduce our costs for costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
No.
Seeing no questions, anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Good.
I move the council accept the report regarding WCB premium reduction for information.
Everybody understands the motion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Next item on the agenda, future of public safety and enforcement services with CAO Miller.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. I have this briefing note on the agenda because administration is seeking some guidance and direction and I guess assurance in the direction that we are walking regarding our public safety and enforcement services. So I am getting mixed signals from councillors, some who are encouraged with the progress to date and like to see a continuation of the direction that we're going and continuing our developing our enforcement team. Others have indicated that they would like to see no further hirings, no further increases to that department. So I would like to just walk through this briefing memo a bit, just as a reminder. Council strategic plan, one of the 5 pillars is being a strong, safe, and connected community. And a high priority goal of this was to foster a safe community. Also on my CAO mandate letter that is from April 2024 to October of 2025, the #1 priority in the mandate letter is public safety, crime reduction, and the impacts of homelessness. So back in 2023, we brought forward a case to engage a director of protective services and to start developing the CPO program. It did take us some time, no secret, to fill that position. And in the meantime, last summer, things elevated, and in the spring and summer, the public's and social disorder on the streets of down Peace River got out of hand and out of control, the level of encampments, etc. Council then moved to engage Apex for the 3 months trial, and during that trial, we were provided 24/7 coverage through some security guards. Once that program ended, that trial program, a report was brought back to council with a discussion regarding continuation of the similar Apex program, or to continue with our intentions to elevate and to develop and elevate the CPO program. In the absence of the CPO and the director while we were searching last, maybe July or August, we did engage a temporary bylaw officer, largely to address the ancillary properties, the grass, and then that transitioned into taking care of parking concerns during snow removal, sidewalk clearing, ice removal. And we have kept our bylaw officer extremely busy, even in light of engaging a new director. So we do have a new CPO engaged and will be starting April 1st. Where are we now? The temporary bylaw position is our intention to continue as for now, is on a temporary employment offer to ensure that we can continue managing the ground or the snow removal and the ice removal, and from there it will slip right into grass removal or grass cutting. We notices, I believe, it was rather surprising when Director Kress gave the number of files being at 60 some odd for half the month in January. So I'm looking forward to seeing how many files they actually are up to come the end of February's report. I did want to talk a little bit about that bylaw position. So as it stands right now, the org chart does support this director, 1 full-time CPO. I do have provisions in there for casual and temporary employment where necessary. Should we, as the memo mentioned, should we, once Director Kress has had opportunity to evaluate our program and what he feels is the best model moving forward for 2026, we will bring forward a request for decision on adding to the organizational chart on a permanent basis for 2026 budget. The position or positions he seems would be best suited to provide the enforcement level that our community is seeking. In the meantime, I do have provision in the budget for some temporary services as well as for some casual CPO enforcement. I think there may be some concerns around the casual, might be thinking that it's more of a permanent engagement, but by nature casual simply means the shift you work today, that's the beginning and end of our employment relationship. And we will have a need for some casuals. You know, our CPOs can't work every day of the week or all the hours that we need. And there were times such as the jet boat event and whatnot, where we will be seeking additional support, enforcement and support in town. And as well, sometimes we may want to enforce some things such as weights and measures that currently our CPO is not eligible to enforce. So I think that kind of says where we are right now. So what we're working on right now is, you know, getting some work done. So he's working, trying to ensure again, our director is trying to become familiar with the community, get to know the landscape, get to know the people, get to know all the players, get to learn where they like to build encampments, getting to know the policies and bylaws we have in place, mentoring our existing bylaw officer, and also helping him move all those files forward. And I thought it was important also to mention that by nature of the work, policing requires excellent and top-notch record keeping. And at the moment, we don't have any administrative support for the people who are working in enforcement for us. So that also does take time for them to create the new files that the files and the information that they need to ensure that the enforcement, should legal action have to be taken, is defendable. So that is full right now. Our intention was, administration's intention was to move forward with the new director, to continue the temporary bylaw at the time, to engage any CPOs on a casual basis as we need them for additional support through the summer, and allow the director time to bring somewhat of a move forward plan in the fall for consideration by council for budget 2026, unless we're given direction otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Is there any questions from council? Councillor Scannahorn?
So with casuals, that would also cover off if there's sick time or leave time, or, and you know, someone's having a grandbaby somewhere and then, you know, whatever, something like that as well, I'm assuming. I had one more question about, oh, yeah. Where do we find casual CPOs? Like, are these guys just, you know, hanging out in town waiting for the phone to ring, or is that a legit question? I'm just curious at this point for that one.
So first question, yes, hopefully we can line them up for holidays and whatnot. Our director is using his resources, contacts. CPOs typically work shifts like 410s or 12-hour shifts, and then they'll have gaps. So they work a number of days and then they're off a number of days. And the intention was, and the hope was, to draw on them during their off shifts from surrounding areas. So
Just for myself, like I'm Director of Protective Services. Yes, we're hiring another peace officer. And the good news is that person's going to be starting April 1st. You did explain the temporary bylaw at the time was a needed position, and you brought him on because we didn't have any CPOs at the time. But what caught me totally off guard was the hiring of casual positions, because I get asked that question in the public. No, that's not happening. We only have 2 positions. So kind of that one caught me off guard because I didn't have that information. Any other questions from council? Mayor Mazur?
Just one. So, has someone had a chance to submit the grant application that Minister Ellis was asking us about?
Officially, yes.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear.
Officially, yes, it's been submitted.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Carr?
And my concern was that we'd originally, as was mentioned, we have 2 positions. We have 2 CPO positions that has been approved by council. I understand why we hired the peace officer, or the bylaw officer rather, when we did not have peace officers on staff. Obviously, that was a burden that Chief Harris was probably too busy to take on, and probably had no interest in taking on, to be quite honest. But my concern came from the announcement at a I forget, I think it was a CAC meeting, where we were hiring 3 to 8 peace officers to work underneath our director of protective services. That was news to me. People were asking me questions about it, and I tell them, not that I'm aware of. I said, it hasn't come to council. I don't know where this is coming from. I said, maybe it's our CPO's wish list, but I said, council has not approved anything like that. And then Councillor Scannahorn mentioned at a Citizens on Patrol meeting that we were hiring casuals, and I thought, where is this coming from? Because council has not been involved in these discussions, and how are some councillors aware of things that other councillors are not? I believe that goes directly against our bylaws, unless of course that was Councillor Scannahorn's dream or wish list, which I don't believe it was. So I'm very concerned about these kind of things. But in addition to all this, before we expand our peace officers and what have you, have we explored everything else? Have we explored CEPTED completely? Have we explored the, what is that called? It's called the Rural Alberta Emergency Crime Capture that the RCMP has. Like, have we explored everything else? Because to be honest, I'm not interested in Peace River having its own police force. I understand we need a couple peace officers. I certainly support that. But I would rather spend the money on a couple RCMP and have them restricted to the town rather than build a police force of peace officers. I have a hard time. I have a hard time with that, to be honest, and I wanted it brought to council for discussion because there's some transparency that's lacking here, and maybe more questions need to be asked. Thank you.
D.A. Miller.
Thank you. I did go back and look at the minutes when you brought your concerns forward to me, Councillor Carr, and the CAC minutes say in the process of hiring 3 to 8 CPOs in the next 3 to 5 years. So that is a future goal of us, which, you know, administration is talking to expand the CPO program over a goal. It clearly said 3 to 5 years. I don't personally, I don't find it a bad thing necessarily that we've hired a CPO director who has a vision and is excited and looking forward. Had the minutes not said 3 to 5 years, I probably would have had concern. But we need to have a vision and something to work towards, and eventually that vision would be brought to future council. I do have to apologize for casual. I never expected or anticipated I would ever have to bring forward to council that I was hiring casual employees. My authority doesn't require me to do so, so I never thought to do that. And I'm absolutely acting 100% on what I thought was, or my understanding of the urgency and the desire to have enforcement and security, public safety, and see that on the street. So I do apologize for that. But we do hire casuals in many other areas, depending on the need or the business operation or the circumstance. And it must just be because of the venue that it came in out to, that it caused a bit of upset, and I will apologize for that.
Just to comment on that, can you possibly explain, because I don't understand it 100% myself, can you explain to council how the authority through the MGA works to hire a casual position like the temporary peace officer that's not in the tree of our hired, or like in our hiring? Because I do understand that's how a person brought the temporary bylaw on, because there was a need, there was an urgent need. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm
Like, where
going to
does it-
stumble along here. So they have to get, so for example, there's a peace officer right now who will go and do a new pair test, because they haven't done the pair test for a number of years because they're appointed at a municipality. So then for them to be able to be appointed by the Solicitor General to serve under the town of Peace River, they have to go and do their pair test. And once they get that certification, then our director can submit their name to Solicitor General to gain authority then to work on behalf of the town of Peace River. So our director right now, we are working through a shared agreement under Valley View until he was actually getting some of his testing done today. But with our casuals, we intend not to do a shared service agreement, but intend to have them do the testing and they get appointed here and they can work as we need them.
Yeah, I understand all of that. I guess I should maybe re-ask the question, how does the CAO have the authority to hire a temporary peace officer if it's not in our realm? Like, how do you, like, when a person hired the temporary bylaw position where there was no position available? So how do we hire a temporary peace officer position when there's no position available? You have the authority to do so, you had said. How? That's the explanation I'm looking for.
Just one moment, please.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, I think I have to go back to look. I believe it's in my, I'm not sure if it's in the hiring policy. I know I previously had provided it to you when this was brought forward a number of months ago. I will have to find it again. It's either in the CAO bylaw or it's under the hiring policy, where it says permanent positions must be brought forward to council, but I can hire on a temporary and casual basis to fulfill operational needs through the operating budget.
Okay, no, that would be fine. It doesn't have to be tonight though. Councillor Carr?
No, I was gonna ask, where is this money gonna come from? And CAO Miller just answered, it's coming from the operational budget. So that was answered. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Shannon?
I'm just curious about the temporary or the, and the casual. So the, in reality then, by that logic, like that you can, so you can have a temporary person work for 4 years if you want. If it's always on a temporary basis, like, is there any mechanism there, like a cap or something, or can you just keep, I'm not sure how that would work. Thanks.
I know for those who are in scope, there's a mechanism, a trigger, and I would just imagine, I don't know if there's any permanent trigger for out of scope staff, because absolutely it could be 18 months for a maternity. I'm gonna have 2 temporaries very shortly, backfilling maternity positions, right? So again, it's typically operational need. And if I know it's gonna go into a future budget, we need to budget that. We usually have some allowance for casuals or temporaries because many projects come up, we need to engage people. It would pretty much be us when we'd say, hey, this position really should be a permanent position and we need to come forward to council and say, we've engaged this on a temporary basis, and provide the business case, really. Yes, provide the business case.
Councillor Good?
Yeah, I think in reading the letter, the one thing I'm really interested in is when the CPO that's coming on is going to bring recommendations to council as to what he believes needs to be done. And from people I've talked to, he's had a fairly good success in Valley of addressing concerns around homelessness and some of the crime issues that we're having there. So I think he's coming from a position of experience and some success. And I take a look at the comments I've heard from business people, and it percolates in social media all the time about business people getting their doors broken into, things stolen. There was one on Facebook today, I'm not sure where it was in town, where they're shutting down their business for a few days. I believe it's in Peace River because of a robbery or theft in their business. And we have a responsibility under the MJ. It talks about safe communities. It talks about doing things that are for the benefit of your community. And I haven't seen in my experience on council over the years the kind of consensus that I've seen from the public, and this is just to me in my own experience, I'm not speaking about anybody else's, but the consensus that I've experienced about the town of Peace River not being safe to walk in, which was never a consideration 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. You could walk on the big trail whenever you wanted. People say, how do you feel about walking around downtown at night? And I never really had to worry about it. People I know never had to worry about it. We had businesses down in these Yeah, I've had businesses in the downtown. I never worried about the windows getting smashed or things being stolen. It was an afterthought, if anything. And that's not what it is today. And I think people are expecting a higher level. And when I hear about the idea of hiring RCMP, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I'd like it if the RCMP could hire enough RCMP to meet their needs. When I take a look in town of what our level of service that we're supposed to have, and the number of RCMP we have on boots on the ground in our area, and those two numbers don't jive, I wonder where we would get these other RCMP members from. Because the RCMP is having a hard enough time keeping boots on the ground, and they've talked about that publicly, the difficulties they have in hiring. And I think we're expected, and we're being expected by the public to do something. Now, Apex, can you question, was it the best decision, the only decision, what other decisions, whatever? I'm fine with it. Was it the only decision that could have been made? No, heck no. Probably could have come up with some other ones. Maybe they would have worked, maybe they didn't, but that would have an effect, and it was fairly positive. I'm looking optimistically at this, and I'm looking optimistically at what I believe it'll bring our community. And at a minimum, I think it shows the council is attempting to respond to the issue. And the town is attempting to respond to the issue, because when I get an answer from our provincial counterparts that we're certainly willing to help you, but first you gotta fill out this form and spend a bunch of money on a report to find out if in fact you need it. What I'm hearing every day that we need it, you know, I question what we're doing. I don't question what we're doing in this case. Overall, is it the only answer, the best answer? Well, I think the CPO in his recommendation will bring it to council. And I'm looking forward to a good discussion among all of us from all points of view of how we look at that information and say, yeah, we like this, we don't like this, whatever. At least we're doing something to help keep our people safe. So that's sort of rambling, but I'm getting tired of people not feeling safe to walk down the streets of their town. I'm getting tired of having business people tell me that they feel threatened when they're in their stores, when people come in. I hear that so often. So.
Councilor Scanlon? Yeah, so well, my name's come up here. I guess I could speak to that too. So that conversation that was or the COP meeting that I was attending was a Tuesday night, which would have been the night after a Monday night. So the Monday night we had a council meeting, and I just had a conversation with CEO Miller that evening, and I asked her a whole bunch of questions about the program and where it might go and whatever. And so that if there's a reason why I had some attention or maybe some information that other councilors didn't, it wasn't anything nefarious or any kind of intended to be withheld. It's just, I bugged her about it quite a bit that evening. So that's how I found out about that thing. And then when it was being discussed, given that it is within the CAO's mandate to do those things and that I did have that information, I just shared it with, let's face it, a whole table full of very concerned citizens, concerned enough that they're looking at volunteering their time to drive around town and keep an eye on things. And so they were certainly asking and wondering about what the town's plans are going forward as well. So I felt it appropriate to share. Any other questions from council? And just for myself, I've supported the CPO program for years, ever since I've been on the Alberta Community Crime Prevention Association board. A lot of CPOs, we have lots that come to our conference. The only question I am going to ask is when, like the 3 to 8 officers that could possibly be hired in the next 3 to 5 years. That was in the RCMP minute or CAC minutes. I had read them. Councilor Scammahorn attended that meeting for me. But some of the questions coming from the public is when we did the Apex pilot project and the dollar value that we were looking at
when council made that decision to run that project. How does that, and there again, I don't need the answer tonight, but the public's gonna ask this because they already have. So when you go three to 8 peace officers working under our current director, what dollar value are we looking at there compared to the dollar value of the pilot project, even though the pilot project does not have all of the same authority that a CPO or a CPO would have? Any other questions from council? Anybody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Or Councillor Good? Oh, okay, Councillor Gallagher.
I have an appointment, so I do have to take off, so I'll make the motion and then I'll leave. I'll move that council accept the briefing note regarding the future of public safety and enforcement services in Peace River, acknowledging steps taken to date and confirming administration's general move forward plans.
Everybody understands the motion? All in favor? And that is carried. Hey, moving forward, reports. February 25th monthly development report.
This is our monthly development report where we're just highlighting some of the bigger development related activities for council's attention. So you hear about them here and not just around town. So a couple of key things that are obviously on our plates right now. Obviously every council is aware of the West Hill development, so we continue to work on that. We have provided to the developer the information about the parking variance that council granted recently from 1.5 to 1.25 spaces per dwelling for the apartment. And the developer continues to work on finalizing their site plans. So we haven't received those yet, but do expect them in the near future. Once we have that, we will bring the development forward to council for a decision. And then we'll be working to enter into a development agreement, etc., with the developer to support that development. And once they are through that, they will be also applying for building and other safety code permits and then getting into construction. We also expect a subdivision application on that site in the next few months. Change of use to indoor participant recreation. So we are still working with the property or the leasee at 8102 102nd Ave. That's on the West Hill in the industrial area for the gym. They do need to provide us with a bit more information related to parking on that site. We have provided them until Friday to provide that information. I haven't had a chance to check in to see if we've received it yet. But if they have not provided it, then we'll either be looking to enter into an extension with them, as I previously mentioned earlier this evening, or otherwise we'd have to close that file with not enough information received to make the decision. We have received a couple of development permits for single detached dwellings, which is excellent, good news. But neither of them are simple. We do require variances for both. So we are preparing MPC reports to bring those to the MPC for decision. One of them is in the downtown area and includes a proposed 0 lot line setback on one side. So that means that the property or the house is going to have to be built with a firewall on the one side to meet the building permit or the building code requirements for that. And it also is a variance to our standard setback requirements for residential. And the second is a proposal in Lower West Peace where they require variances to the building height maximum, the driveway parking requirement, and also the regulation that's specific to Lower West Peace that prohibits basements. This is a property that is in the far south end of the neighborhood and is slightly elevated, so its ground level is not standard or typical for that neighborhood. So we have been in contact with BC Hydro that has dewatering wells in that neighborhood, and we'll be presenting that application to the MPC tomorrow. Then we've got Nate. They continue to proceed with their increase to their Center for Rural Research, so they have received a building permit for the new Kwanzaa building. We are still waiting on a building permit application for the automotive electric services in the Riverfront Development District. The change of use, the dwelling, the caretaker residence up at the old Chrysler dealership. We have issued a building permit for that site, so that is proceeding. And then we have received inquiries related to retail stores in the M1 district. We actually have 2 different inquiries for 2 different locations within the industrial area up on the West Hill. Just wanted to flag that we don't have any applications related to those at this time, but we have had inquiries from a couple of different businesses. So those are some of the hot button items that are keeping us moving these days. I can take any questions council might have about them.
Councillor Shannon?
Were those retail, did you say, the retail business?
Yes, two inquiries related to a retail store, which is not a permitted use in our M1 right now. So it is something that would be, would require a land use bylaw amendment before we could consider it at the development permit level.
Well, that's very exciting to hear.
Any other questions from council? No, anybody like to make a motion?
I can make that motion. Move that council accept, no, I might not be able to make that motion, whatever, where did I just totally go?
Accept the report for information.
Yes, oh yeah, here we go. So I move that council accept the report for information. Thank you, sorry.
Everybody has an understanding of the motion, all in favor? And that is carried. Next on the agenda is council communications package. Would anybody like to highlight anything there? Well, Mayor Manzer usually does.
I guess I could note the first one. I don't have it in front of me, but the chamber did write a letter to the town with respect to the airport. I think the gist of their letter was that they would like to see it municipally owned. They have been talking to ministers and so on about airport and transportation in the north. And I think we have replied to their letter.
Any other highlights from council? Okay, just I'd like to bring up, there is the letter about the Peace River Ice Observation Report. However, kind of related to that, I just want to give kudos out to town administration for keeping a very watchful eye on Pat's Creek and the amount of runoff that we're having. They were out there pretty much all weekend keeping an eye on things, so thank you to them.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, looking for motion to accept for information. Councillor Good.
I move that we accept the items, the item 10.1 for information.
Everybody understands the motion? All in favor? That is carried. Next on the agenda is key communication items. Anybody like to highlight anything? Myself, I'd like to highlight CRAMP. That website that they have with the purple air monitoring is huge, especially for this area. And like I said, the Alberta Minor Football is now using that website for smoke and all that kind of stuff for determining when the kids can and cannot play. Mayor Manzer.
The land use bylaw refresh process that's ongoing and with opportunity for public and so forth to have input. And I think Ms. Modi said the survey ended on March 7th, so time is running on that one. Also the joint use agreements with the 3 school divisions that will be coming forth to council. That was quite a lot of work for admin. And Energy Alberta's open house on March 11th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Weaverville Hall. Might be of interest.
Anybody else like to highlight anything? Councillor Shannon.
I just want to highlight the savings from the WCB, since Director Milner said that was one thing that we don't do is pat ourselves in the back, but we do save a little money, so I think that deserves a mention.
Okay, seeing nothing else, anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Good.
Want a motion to go into camera?
Yeah.
We have.
Oh, that was just key communication.
Oh,
Looking at.
communication.
Yeah, so next on the agenda is closed session, so does anybody want to take a break or do you want to push through?
Push through.
Push through? Okay, we'll be looking for a motion to go in camera.
You have to
Councillor
ask if I got any questions first, it's part of the rules.
Actually,
I attended and if it was part of the.
okay, following the procedural bylaw, at the beginning of the meeting, there was a spot for comments of the public, which you were not at. Unfortunately, I have to stand by the procedural bylaw and operate to such
Can't
effect.
comment on the meeting.
No, you
until
can't.
after you've seen, after it's happened.
No,
Can't
that
comment.
is during a regular meeting of council, that is at the end of the agenda. At the governance and priorities meeting,
I'm
that
sorry.
part is
I'm
at the
sorry,
beginning
I
of the
didn't
meeting.
realize it was the
Yeah.
wrong meeting, it's okay.
Nope, that's fine.
I
Thank you.
apologize.
Councillor Good, you were making a motion?
Sure. Let me get it right. I'll move that, we enter into closed session, in accordance with sections 19, 24, and 25 of the FOIA.